Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Tech. As we deal with some technical difficulties here because we don't have a 10-year-old around to help us with the technology. It says something went wrong, tap to retry. Why is my live stream not working? There we go. How to raise rent in 2025 and not lose tenants. That's the challenge with raising rents. And I actually have heard many landlords over the years say, I don't want to raise the rents and lose a good tenant. So I end up buying their property and that person lost a good asset instead. And it isn't that you raise the rents because you updated the place. That's not how it works. Rents are almost exactly the same today as they were in 1980, 1995, 2010. It's the dollar that loses value. You need to increase your rents because it takes more currency to do things like pay your property taxes, pay your insurance, pay the labor, buy the materials when they come in. If you don't stay on top of rent increases, a small increase to gross rents has a massive impact on your net income. So today, I have Jason, who is in witness protection, so we can't use his last name. And uh, can you break down really quick the size of your portfolio when you acquired that first property and the one that we're going to talk about today? Tell us some details about it.
Sure. My first property was February 2nd of last year. It was a fourplex. That one's going well. I just picked up another fourplex April 7th of this year. And that's the one I'm trying to raise the rents on.
Okay. And if you're watching this in Futureland, it was April 7th, 2025.
Yeah.
When everybody was saying don't buy because prices are high and interest rates are high and nothing will cash flow and the world's going to end, we're coming into a recession and it's the end of the world. So, like we've heard every year for the last 50 years, don't buy real estate. And you bought real estate. Uh, if you don't mind sharing the numbers, what are the current rents?
Um, for the old one, they're 1,400 each. They're all two bedrooms. For the new one I just purchased, they're at 1,000 each, and they're all three bedrooms. They're about 4 blocks away from each other.
Now, the first property, what type of tenants do you have?
Those are all Section 8 tenants.
So, Section 8 is paying you $1,400 a month for two-bedroom units. What type of tenants are in this new property that you just closed on in April?
They are market tenants.
So market tenants. So some working, some retired, some just people
One
who
retired, the rest are all working.
okay.
All not that it makes a difference, but they're all a family.
So this is almost the type of property that I hunt for in my market. And we can't make assumptions, but we can figure out what's most likely. They probably had a tired landlord who wasn't taking care of the place, who didn't want to raise the rents, hasn't raised the rents for a long time, thought they probably thought like Graham Stephan did when he didn't raise the rents for 10 years. He would make more money if he buried his money in his backyard than if he had this rental at $1,000 a month. Have you done a rent study? And so, what do you think three-bedroom units in this market should rent for?
Around 1,700, I would say is the average. Section 8 will pay they're listed at 1,840. So I figured 700 or 1,700 from them is pretty average as well.
Yeah, Section 8's a good metric. It's not the only one that we use. The hard part to it is you have to understand your local market. So we'll actually show, we're going to go through demonstrating how we set rents in this. We're going to build a binder together. It's the point of this video. And we will answer questions that pop up in the chat. Uh, Section 8 will say, if they say in this case, they'll pay 1840, they'll say, well, that has to include utilities. Okay. But is there a shortage of units in your market? Because if there is, they have a 10% variance. They can actually pay 10% above that, including utilities. So there's a lot of different factors. Then they'll have a grading scale that each local housing authority can almost design on their own. Some places, mobile homes get paid less. Some places, attached ADUs pay less, or built-out apartments pay less. So you have to know your local market, and to the point where you have the four with Section 8. They're at 1,400. Uh, that sounds about right. If three bedrooms go for 1,700, we'll see what we find because I haven't looked at your market yet. We'll see what I kind of determine on a snapshot view, which is not accurate. Uh, we're also going to look at, so here's a question. Are there any military bases around you?
They're 15 miles away.
15 miles?
Yeah.
So in Washington, that's about a block and a half. Like that's next door.
These
Our
are
commute here is normal for almost everyone I know.
they're probably like 25 minutes away.
Okay. So at 25 minutes away, I would consider BAH a factor, which is called basic allowance for housing. So what will the military pay? And I usually rely on what they would pay in E5 because even if there's no bases in your area, the military will pay basic allowance for housing for people using their GI Bill. So if they're attending a college in your town, here's what the military would pay. It just gives you a touch point to say, here's what they're being compensated for rent with the military's this oxymoron, military intelligence put together a rent study and said, here's what this local market should be paying for rents. So they're at $1,000 a month. You estimate they should be at 17. Section 8 would pay even higher than that. How does the cash flow look with your purchase price, your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, the mortgage you're paying, setting aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy? If the rents are just at 1,000 and they stayed at 1,000 for the next year, what does that return look like?
Not good. It's like $5,800 for the year.
So it's a positive number.
Barely, yes.
Barely. Okay. How much did you put down?
110.
So 110. So this is about at current rents. What does it sounds like a 4% return?
Yeah, a little, probably a little less. But
Okay.
I also I put down 110, but I also have about 60,000 in repairs with the roof and tuck pointing and stuff.
Okay, which brings us down to not quite down to a 2% return, but it's still a positive return because you have positive cash flow. So a 2% return, most people, most landlords, most not landlords, investors would look at this deal. And I just did a video with the three amigos about a week ago talking about buying break-even deals. This was the one that I referenced that I've purchased. Deals exactly like this. Even worse, current rents lost money. And there are investors that go, I wouldn't buy it. It's basically a break-even deal. You could probably find deals that get you an 8 or 9% return. Maybe you don't need the work or whatever because they're using current existing rents. And that's not how I calculate this. I look for area average rent. So you do a rent study. And then I figure a little 5 to 10% below that, right? Because it's not always going to be perfect. How would it look there? So have you ran what the return would be if you got all of your rents to 1,700? Well,
Um,
actually, yeah, I'll run it a little less than that, 1,600.
it's 1,700. I did that. It's 33,000 a year, which is a big difference.
So 33,000 cash flow on 160, 170,000 invested. So you could do a
Right.
quick calculation.
Sure.
The question from Frank is, do you have a preference to Section 8 versus regular non-Section 8 tenants?
These will be my first market tenants for the last month. They've been fine. But I've had no problem with my Section 8 tenants, so I can't see the future. I don't see any problems with them. But that's pretty much it. Happy with my Section 8 tenants though.
Yeah, so I like both, and I invest in two counties. The tenant to me doesn't determine whether I like the program or not because the property attracts the tenant type. If you have a property in a bad neighborhood where people that are just really desperate and don't care about anything want to live there, you're probably going to get bad tenants that make poor life decisions. But if I have a nice property and I rent it out to Section 8, I have no different than my non-Section 8 tenants. I require above a 700 credit score, no evictions, so I can still screen the same as I do for the other non-Section 8 tenants. It's the housing authority that determines whether I will or not. So again, not to name people by name, but Pierce County, Washington sucks, and I won't own a rental property there with Section 8. Thurston County, it's great. I have no problems. They actually just did an inspection. What did they come back with? Oh, they came back with this certificate. Basically tell us that your smoke alarms are all 10-year non-tamper battery resistant, whatever, or hardwired. They're not even going to check. They just want me to sign off saying they are. I don't know if they are or not. So I have a handyman going out there to swap them all out with those because I don't know when the last time I looked at those ones were. But that was the whole thing. They looked at a house that had probably several issues. That's the only thing they pointed out. They just want their tenants to have a place to live that they're happy at. So, how to raise the rents in 2025? Buy properties where current existing rents don't matter, even if they have long leases. I can factor that into my return. I did the math, just back of the napkin math. It looks like you're going to break a 17% return, cash on cash, once we get this closer to market rents at 17 at so here's the hard part that I can't get into most people's brains. We can do the math and it's a 17% return ish. Well, what if rents are only 1600 or 1500? I don't care and I'm not going to run the math on that. If we're at 17 at market rents and we were at 2 at current rents, the return on investment's going to be enough to where I would pursue the deal. I stop thinking math at that point. I want fuzzy math to tell me this is a good deal. And then now it goes down to what market is this in? Is this in a safe market that you can go to and collect rents or talk to a tenant without having a armed security guard?
Yep.
Is it in a flood zone?
No.
Is it next to something like a mushroom factory, French fry factory, mushroom farm factory, dump, airport, underneath massive power lines?
No.
So many people go, the math is good, buy it. Don't buy it. No, that's like this much. So now you go through this laundry list that we go through in the members only meetings every month where we go, okay, this is actually what makes it a good or a bad deal. So you've determined it's a good deal. Are there washer dryer hookups on the property
Yeah, just in the basement, but
in
yes.
the basement? Are you going to do paid laundry or free laundry?
It's paid right now, so I'm
Yep.
gonna keep it the same.
So if I had shared laundry, which is not my preference, I prefer them in units, but I would buy one because it's just one of the boxes I want to check, right? So you got the safe neighborhood, no flood zone. Do you allow pets?
Yes.
Okay, so like there's all these lists. Shared laundry isn't a deal breaker, but if I had it, I would go paid laundry because free laundry usually has tenants invite over friends and family that do their laundry there, and then it increases your wear and tear on your machines, possibly your cost to water, depending on how you set up that billing. So this is the next phase for me. Let me share my screen because what we're actually going to do, and I'll share my screen again, is we're going to make a physical binder that you might have just screenshots of and do through email or through text messages. Text messages, emails work. You live close to the property, you're going to deal with the tenants. You said the other night you've already given a landlord introduction letter, so you've already met them.
Correct.
I prefer a physical binder in hand because we don't know. Your tenant might be old school or they might be tech. If they're old school, this will resonate. If they're tech, this will resonate. If they're old school, an email won't, right? So you eliminate the chance for the communication style to actually be the one the tenant can use by going the way that works for you. So this will work universally. I've done both. When we do Section 8, I do it through email. I don't take a binder to my housing authority. The front cover right here, you should go and take a screenshot street view of your property from Redfin or Zillow that has, as soon as it's updated, your purchase price. Because one of the opening sentences with the tenants is, this is the property that I just purchased. Your rents kind of made sense to the previous owner because they bought it, in the dinosaur days. Maybe it was paid off and the rent you're paying made sense to them. But this price, that means nothing to the tenant. This price is what my property taxes and my insurance and my payments are based on. This isn't to show them your expense because tenants do not care what your expenses are. If they did, a paid off property and a property with a mortgage would rent for different amounts. And tenants don't even know if your property has a mortgage usually. But I point this out because it's from Redfin or Zillow. This opens the conversation with, hey, everything I'm about to share with you, you can Google. You can find this information yourself. So then you open the binder. The first page inside there should be a picture of a map of the area with the little pinpoints from Zillow, apartments.com, or whatever, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, whatever people are using to find rentals. That map shows them, okay, this is about the size of the area that I looked at. Sometimes you have to go out farther because there's not a lot of rentals available. Sometimes you narrow it in. So those are the first two, easy to print out. It's universal for anybody making a binder. My property, the map for the property. This current one doesn't have it because I was changing out where I was doing it for. The next page is straight from fair market rents. So anybody who joined the video that is seeing, why do we keep talking about Section 8? These aren't Section 8 tenants. The idea is you want to share with the tenants, here is what the state would pay me if I kicked you out or if you moved out. So now I'll share my screen and I'll actually go through this step by step, just like I would if I was doing this for one of my properties, which was the last time I had to do the binder? It was like 2 months ago. So I go to fair market rents, HUD, and make sure this covers my whole screen. I scroll down to this button right here for 2025. By October, the next year's data will be out. And let's go. This is the part people are actually probably wondering. Where do you live?
Chicago.
Is it
Cook.
Chicago? Is it Illinois?
Yes. Yeah, you're in the right one. Cook County. Yep.
I went to school in America and they don't teach us nothing. So Cook County, Illinois,
60619. It's down a bit.
60619. So before I get there, when you come to fair market rents, if you live in a small county like Thurston County, Washington, it just lists the rents. The more populated the area, the more likely you find broken down by zip code. 606, you said?
19. Yep. There you go.
So since we can't see the top, this right here is what you Section 8 would pay for somebody renting a room in your place or a studio that doesn't have a bedroom, including utilities. This is what they would pay for a one bedroom, including utilities, a two bedroom. So you're getting 1,400.
Correct.
That's pretty close to their limit. And when they say, well, it has to include utilities, yeah, but they can go 10% over. And when you did this last year when you bought that, I binder strategy the housing authority.
Mhm.
And it's off camera before we started. You did a version of the binder strategy. Can you share how you got your rents to 1,400 with Section 8 last year?
I just sent them comparable properties in the area, and that was it. They approved it right away.
Yep. So find the rentals that rent for what you're asking for or more and send them screenshots in email. My step that I would add is I usually go to the tenant first. I use the binder on the tenant. I say, here's what Section 8 will pay. Here is the comps in the area if you were to move out, or what I can get if somebody else was to move in. I sign a lease with the tenant with a new increase with enough notice that's legally required in your area. And in that lease, there's a caveat that says pending approval from the housing authority, meaning this lease is void if the housing authority just doesn't agree to it. Then I send that with the comps and sometimes with the screenshot of here's what you're allowed to pay in my area to the housing authority. So 1840, they would pay. So your housing authority would pay 1430 and they are paying you 1400. So you're only not even a percent or two below,
Hmm.
right? And you're estimating 4% or so below what they would pay for three bedrooms. So that's a very safe conservative number because this is what they would pay for three bedrooms. Then I can't type or spelling. Pay grade, which is usually gives me a rate here. So I don't want to see warrant officers. I want to see enlisted. There's a website. We can really get into that if we want, but I usually just have AI tell me if I'm going to use this in the binder, I will print it out. And it doesn't say. I haven't been to this in a while. So I probably should have had this ready. But again, this is in real life how you would do this. Have you looked up BAH for your area?
No, I've seen you do it, but I've never looked at it. I thought they were
Yeah,
too.
in that we did it one time. There we go. It's usually just a simple pop-up where I want enlisted and I want to go to E5. Why was it so easy for me to find this time? And the first one made me look retarded, which that's my skill set. So 2025 E5, this is what they'll pay. Now they don't go by bedroom. They just go if you're in the military and you have a spouse or kids, here's what we'll pay. If you're single, here's what we'll pay. Now, a single person is going to probably live in a one or a two bedroom. They might live in a three bedroom and rent rooms out with their friends. A person with a family is probably going to want that three bedroom or more. So basic allowance for housing in Chicago, which you said it's 25 minutes to the closest military installation. Silly question, but I'm going to ask this like we weren't talking about Chicago. But in your area, are there any colleges?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Okay, so there's a lot of colleges.
Yeah.
I live in Port Orchard, and there's, the larger colleges aren't in Kitsap County. There are colleges here, but there's not major colleges here. If I was in closer to Tacoma, Western Washington, uh, Pullman, or one of the places with the big colleges, I would rely more heavily on BH. Now, close to me, there is a Navy base. Close to my other rentals, there's an Army base. So I use these, but not because of the colleges. I reference the colleges because a lot of people will say there's no base around me. Great. Are there colleges? Now BH has an impact. So you're able to show your tenants this Section 8 will pay 18 something. The military in this area get 2,200, right? Or 1,700 if they're single. Usually single people live on base. Single people with colleges get the BH. So you got to kind of know your market. So then the next page is we actually go and we learn how to run our computer again. We go from BAH, so we wrote down those numbers, or we took a screenshot of this screen right here. Just take a screenshot of this. If you like, Jason, I'll take one and send it to you. This is BAH for your area. And you can add that to your binder. I'll go to Zillow. I want to rent. Not where my properties are. Uh, what's the zip code again? 6.
0619. Yep.
Okay, so I'm on Zillow. You are looking at three bedrooms. I want to use exact match. All four units are three bedroom.
Yes.
Okay. Do they all have one bedroom or two or bathroom or two bathrooms?
One bathroom.
Okay. How close is this in area to where you're at?
I would go down to like 73rd Street, other way.
So I want to go down, which is up. I like it. So this is the area here.
Yes.
So just this is what's called a snapshot. If you're doing an actual rent study for you to determine what should I buy properties at, I wouldn't look at this and go, oh, here's my average. I would look at it for at least 2 weeks and think, okay, this one sat too long, had to be readjusted lower. This one came on, was on for 1 or 2 days, disappeared, came back 3 days later with $500 rent increase because they got too much demand, right? You want a 2 week window to say, here's what's happening with most of the rents. So the way my brain works is if I was the tenant looking at this, because you're going to print these out, what am I going to zero in on? Why would I pay you $1,700 a month if I can go get a $1,400 a month apartment? Now, here's a fourplex with parking or on-street parking.
There's a garage that they park in and there's street parking. The
Okay.
garage only fits 2 cars.
So they're going to look at the cheapest place. There's a 1,400 one here. So I might put this one on here. So housing voucher accepted. This might have a low income requirement, and it might be why they do that. And I'll tell my tenants, if you qualify as low income, maybe you want to look for a place like this. Eliminate the thing that could make it seem like you're not being transparent. Find the super low ones and figure out why. Why are they super low?
Oh, it's a garden unit.
So 14 days on Zillow means I would want to watch.
That one's a garden unit. That's why that would be cheaper.
What's that called?
It means it's the basement apartment where they only have like half windows.
Okay.
It was in the description that it was a
Yeah.
garden.
Good. See, so you know your market that doesn't exist in Washington because anything below ground level becomes an indoor pool. So, so I see a lot of 1900s, a lot of 1800s. I saw a couple cheap ones. I would probably maybe point that one out and say, hey, this is whatever unit you called it, that magic word
A
garden
garden
unit you called it.
apartment. Garden,
Garden. Okay.
because it's even
And
with the garden.
yeah. Okay. Nice. So you know your market and say, look, if you want a garden apartment, there are cheaper ones out there. If you want to watch everybody walk by your window every day. But I would look at how much more updated than this, is this than your property?
Not much.
Not much. Okay. So if they moved out and you spent some money rehabbing it, you would get 19. I would never expect tenants to raise their rent to $1,900 because that's what I get after spending 5 or 10 grand, right? But I don't expect them to be at 1,000. Is Chicago rent controlled?
No.
No. Okay. That's actually mind blowing as much as I
It's
hear
been
about that city
discussed this
often.
year. They discussed it, but they haven't pushed it at all yet.
So good window of opportunity for you to buy, get rents where they closer to where they should be so that if rent control goes in, you'll actually make more money with rent control than you will without it. Because we bind your strategy after we acquire the property. We don't bind her every year. Then you probably go because they're going to have a massive increase right now or they're going to move. Next year, probably no increase. The next year, probably a 5 or 7% increase, then no increase. Like that kept me up with market rents, close enough to market rents without having to do rehabs that I was fine. My state just did rent control. So I did a video about 2 weeks ago. I'm going to make $138,000 more in the next 2 years than I was going to make because of rent control. So the best thing for you would be to acquire this property, maybe one more, get rents where they should be, and then rent control kicks in. You will become more of a multimillionaire. I'm gonna look at the chat really quick. Wandering Doctor's video made you realize you're charging way below market rents. Is it worth having a pool in Washington? No. Devil. Wandering Doc BH in Hawaii is a much more. Yes. And then if there's any questions, what message you send to tenants when doing the binder strategy by text or email? An intro saying, hey, we need to have a conversation. And then the screenshots of, hey, here's what these properties would rent for. Here's what it's literally just this conversation we're having in the same order. Here's a screenshot of the property, what I'm paying, my property taxes, my insurance is based on this. Here's the places for rent. Like I would probably take a screenshot of this window here. Uh, so I'd get away from the garden ones because you want to see like for like as much. This is exactly what you're trying to charge. Here's a $1,700 one. Look, good
I don't
marketing
think
on
they
this
can
one.
go up to 1,700. I was planning on 1,400, but I'll be happy at 12.
So the first person to speak loses the negotiation,
Yes.
right? So in your mind, you're like, okay, if they suggest 1,400, even though area average is 17, great, right? That's in your mind. That's not out loud. The tenant's basically going to split the difference. I think the first number they suggest is going to be 13 or 1350, but let's see how we get there. So I'm going to look at I'm probably going to print out 4 screenshots of places that are above 17. I wouldn't use this one because it looks like it's currently being painted or rehabbed there or whatever's going on.
When you print it out, you just print out like what you just had on the
So,
screen,
so
or
let me show
print
you
out the
what
whole
it looks like.
thing.
Actually, I'll put my money where my mouth is. This is the previous binder. Here's section 8. I probably got to take it out and throw it away. That's what the screenshot looks like, right from Zillow. Is this from Zillow? I don't know. Could be from Redfin. I don't know. I physically took a yellow highlighter and I said, here's what the rent is. I usually mark the bedroom count. So the next one, it's just a screenshot. So if I look at this, I probably went, let's say this $1,900 one here. I clicked on this. I took a screenshot of that.
Okay. I
So
did the whole ad last time, which
from right down here in this corner to right up here. So it would include a picture of the front because that's the picture they're going to see when they open up Redfin or Zillow, and then they're going to see the 1850 3 bedroom. They're actually going to be able to say, okay, this is right around the corner or whatever.
Hmm.
So then I would look at this one I would have four. I don't want to overwhelm them with 30 things. What I'm not going to do is go, look how much rent I'd get if you moved out. Because they're going to go, oh, that's sticker shock. And then they look and they go, wow, that guy lied.
Yeah.
It's like there's one that high, right? So you want to be transparent. I'm not going to focus on the super, super cheap one. Like there's a company called something like Home Safe or Home Light or something in Olympia, Washington, that rents their properties for 50% of market value. And all of the investors in our area know that as soon as they list one, you don't list anything until that one's gone. Then you list yours at market rents. So I would look at the 18 and 19s, maybe something in the 17. I'd skip anything above 2000. I'd skip anything below 1500 because they'll look at this and they'll say, okay, you got a good average going on there. So now you present it to the tenants. Here's the way that you raise the rent. You've made the binder or you've put the text messages together or you've put the email together and you send it to the tenants or you're sitting with the tenants and you say, look, you can take your time and answer. I don't need an answer today. I need one within a day or two, or now if you want. And usually they want an answer now because they don't want you to change your mind because they're going to realize what's the best thing for Jason. You kick the tenants out, you do some light rehab, and you're getting 1900 a unit. You'll almost double your rents. That's the smartest thing for you. That's what most landlords would do. But you want to sleep at night. You want to live like an ethical person. You want to say, look, I didn't disrupt their life more than possible. They need to recognize they were getting a good deal. Congratulations, you've been getting a good deal to them. If you moved out, Section 8 will pay me over 1800. If you moved out, I can rent to other people in this area. I'd spend some money rehabbing it. I don't want to do that. I don't want to displace you. I don't want to do the work. I want to fix the things because you didn't do this right away. Like you closed in April. You're not doing the binder yet. You're doing the repairs you found in the inspection report.
Yes. Yeah. Already have
And
most of
and
them.
you don't have to. I do coated locks. I do motion sensor LED lights. That costs about $500 to get it done on a 4 unit, maybe $600 with labor, right? It's super quick and easy. And then the tenants really like having coated locks. They're used to having keys. And so you've done these things to say, I'm not the tired landlord that got rid of the property that owned it when you first moved in. I'm the guy that's going to take care of the place. And then the magic words. Do you know the magic words with the binder?
No, I don't think so. I'm sure I will once you say them.
As soon as you will, you'll be like, oh yeah, it's because it's super simple. What do you think is fair?
Yeah.
I've never had a tenant go, it would be fair to live here for free or lower my rent or keep the rent the same. I've never, ever, ever had that. I have one time had somebody suggest an amount that was too low. And it's a conversation. I go, yeah, that would be fair for you. And Dividend Dave pointed this out for me. He's in the chat often. He said, take a piece of paper and draw two lines and say, here's what you're paying. Here's what I could get. What you suggested does seem fair for you. Do you see how far that is off from what I could get? And then they usually split the difference. So it's an ongoing conversation. It doesn't have to just have one answer, I accept or I kick them out. Most times, now I've had this two or three times. Michelle had this. My friend Dan had this. The tenant might come back and go, "Man, we're paying 1,000. You can get 1,900. Ugh. What about 1,750? Would you take that and not kick us out?" And you go, "How about 1,600? Like that's a massive increase. 1,750 would be fair, but how about we bring it down?" Michelle brought it down. Dan brought it down. I brought it down. What were the exact numbers with the nice lady who did? She bindered me. She was at like 1460. She did rent and search and came up with like 19 or 2000 or something. And she says she suggested 1850. And I said, that would be really fair, but how about we go to 1700? And then next year, maybe we'll have a small increase. So I did 150 less than what she suggested, which was like a $240 increase. So if you went to your tenant, here's the thing that anybody who comes at me in the comments and says, raising the rent is an evil thing. If you went to your tenants right now and said, I bought the property, I'm the new owner, you were paying 1,000, I'm raising it to 1,100, a 10% increase. I'm going to use a bad word, Jason, I'm sorry. They would look at you and say, Jason, you're a dick. They'd flame you on social media. They'd probably trash the property, maybe move out. But if you go and you treat them like adults, have some empathy, and you say, here's the facts, what I paid, my expenses, which you don't care about, but it's all transparent. Here's the rentals in the area. Here's what the average rent is, what Section 8 will pay, what BAH will pay the military. What do you think is fair? Include them in the conversation, and I almost personally guarantee 1,300 is the smallest increase you're going to see. It'll probably be 1,400. When you acquiesce, when you agree, or when you say that's great, but let's bring it down, or you talk them up a little, and you sign a new lease at that new rent amount, hundreds of dollars more than what you would have increased just by increasing the rent, they will thank you. Happy tenants don't leave. Happy tenants don't trash your property. It's worked for over a decade now. I have hundreds of examples of people who've used this strategy. I'm looking forward to you using this strategy and then sending in the results. Kind of like, let's do it retroactively. You bought the Section 8 property last year. Do
Yeah.
you remember what the rents were before you bought it?
Uh, 12 something, like 12 and some change, low change, like 12.25.
Okay. And so you went to the housing authority and you did over $100 increase,
Yeah.
provided comps. You did a little, I would have went to the tenant. So you did almost that, everything but that.
Well, I did go to the tenants. I have to go to the tenants first by
First, okay,
law.
good. So you did do
I have
that
to have
too.
them sign a lease
Yeah.
first.
Okay. So you did everything that I would do. Are the same tenants in place or have you had tenant turnover out of those?
I had one tenant move out because the lady upstairs was too loud.
Okay.
She moved out for about 3 months and then she wanted to move back because she didn't like the new place. So she moved back at the higher rent.
At the higher rent.
Yes.
So you have currently the same tenants
Yes.
a year later. Okay. That's an interesting tenant moving out. What'd you do for 3 months?
I would fix it up. I did
Oh, okay.
redid the floor, painted and stuff. Nothing major.
Oh, nice. No, that's cool.
That was it.
So I've heard of people having units empty like that. I've had like my biggest mess that I've had to clean up was empty for like 24 days. So when someone
I
says
was
3 months, I'm in shock.
I
You
was
must just be
new.
richer than me.
I was new. I wasn't losing money because I'm making money on the building with the other
Yeah.
three tenants. So I should have been much more aggressive about that.
Yeah. Well,
I had
so you also use the term you fixed it up. How much of the work did you do yourself?
none. I had
Okay,
to go
good.
find people to do the work.
Good. In the
That's what
beginning,
took
I
so
did
long.
most of the work myself, and that's what would screw me over.
I put in the lock, the coded locks myself.
Nice.
That has been the only thing I've done there. I've
Cool. I
looked at
like
stuff.
knowing how to work those.
Yes,
So
I've looked at stuff like, oh, okay, this is what's wrong with it, and then I called somebody to fix it. Usually is what happens.
cool. Let me look through the chat really quick to see if we're missing any comments. Howdy, everybody.
I lost the comments for some reason.
You gotta probably swipe to the side because you're on the.
Oh no, I have them. It just says error loading. Tap to
Oh,
retry.
nice.
Nothing happens. Oh, they just popped up.
Somebody's gonna save this for later. Thank you for that. Wandering Dock, charging too less. Is it worth having a pool in Washington? No. Unless it's where you live and you want to enjoy it. That's the only time I would have a pool here. Like I have a hot tub where I live because I live here. If I ever move out and turn it into a rental, I'm probably going to rip it out. Do you also have to look at how updated those units are in the advertisement compared to yours? Good question, Frank. I don't. I kind of want to make sure that they are updated. And I use the phrase with the tenants because I'm being transparent. Realize one of the reasons we're having this conversation is because if you move out, I have to update the place. And yeah, then I would get market rents. I don't expect you to go to market rents because that's what I would get after spending money and time to fix it up. So they'll look at places that do look nicer. I have three tenants in Hawaii that have been enjoying rents 20 to 30% below market since 2021. Well, great. Congratulations to them. Hopefully, it doesn't get to the point where you end up losing the property. A binder strategy, even in rent control, can help keep your tenants happy. When I go to my tenants and I explain, here's what I would get if you moved out, because I can kick you out and rehab the unit. I can kick you out and move in. I can kick you out and sell, right? Uh, I can go up this amount. Here's how far below we are above market rents. When we do an increase to the maximum allowable by the state, you're still getting a good deal. You still have happy tenants. Did this, two tenants just got their letters, I want to say a week or two ago. So it's not the binder strategy, it's a letter with rent control. But delivering the letter did the binder strategy verbally. Both of them said, thanks. It's bizarre. Can you get 20 coded locks all with the same key? I do have never used a key on any of my coded locks. So here's the thing, JLD systems, you probably could. I would just have all of the keys hang. I've got a key rack over there that has never, they're hanging on it. My mail key gets used all the time, but I've never used the other ones because I put coded locks on two exterior doors. The only time you would ever need the key is if the battery's dead and you can't get in, or the lock fails and you can't get in. The odds of two batteries failing, or two locks failing, or all the windows being locked at the same time are so astronomically small. I don't know if I'd go home and get the key. I'd go drill one of the locks and throw it away, right? They're not worth the headache of categorizing the keys, which I've done because I've got that OCD personality. Uh, is it just OC at that point? But two coded locks on the outside. They make a weird sound when the batteries start to die. They last 2 or 3 years. The lease says they have batteries have to be replaced every year. Uh, so I've never cared about the keys. I've never even cared about tracking the codes. Like Jason, you probably right now have the coded lock pictures. You keep them stored somewhere. You know where they are.
They're on my phone.
Okay, and so on your phone. But let's say you're at the place and you want to change the codes, but you don't have access to the picture. Let's say your phone's not working.
They're in my safe
Okay, but
on,
you're at the
on a piece
property.
of paper.
But
Oh,
you're
then,
at the property.
then I'm out of luck.
Now I'm going to solve your problem for you. That's why I brought it up this in this almost impossible scenario that could never happen. You take the coded lock apart. Inside the back of the coded lock is that little yellow piece of paper that's on the piece of paper that you kept, that you took a picture of to say, this is the master code, this is the current codes. It's on the lock. So you'll always be able to, just with a screwdriver, update the coded lock codes and rechange the batteries.
You can open it from outside the door.
No, so you've got to be inside.
You got to be inside. Okay.
But if the battery's dead and it's failed and you've got to get inside and you got to change the battery and you want to change the code because the tenant's not there, you don't need the picture. You just take the lock apart, you've got your master code in there.
I did have I don't know if she picked them off or the dog picked them off. Two of the numbers are gone, completely gone. So I changed that lock yesterday, actually, put a new one on. I'm gonna call the company and say, hey, is this warranted or I'll just buy another one?
Is it Schlag?
Yeah, it's the same exact ones you
Yeah,
use.
so it should be warranted forever. Now, there's a question here from JLD. Well, what if the tenant changes the codes? They probably will. First of all, they need the master code to
Yeah,
change the codes. So they'd have to be a handyman or a contractor or somebody with a brain that's put them in to take it apart to get the master to change it. You can't change the master. I would still have the master or the ability to take it apart and put the master in. So tenants can change your keys just as easy as they could change your codes. I've shown up at properties before where I buy the property, the landlord says, yeah, the tenant changed the keys, the locks like 2 years ago. I don't have keys, so you're just not getting them. I'm like, oh, it's fine. I'm going to change those locks anyway. I've never had a tenant change the codes. I've changed the codes. So I'll have a code for the tenant. I have a master code that I use pretty much everywhere, and then I'll make a code for handyman. And anytime I have a handyman that, if you've used the one I recommended about 6 months ago, whose life spiraled out of control, I went through and changed all the handyman codes at all of my properties so that he wouldn't have access. Now, a lock will never keep a decent handyman out of your property. So I'm not worried about that, of him knowing that. But yeah, if the tenant changes the codes, go back, leave it while they're there. But when they go, I remove all codes from a lock. There's one code that you put in that blanks out every single code that lock's ever had. Program new ones in. The only thing you can't change is the master code. Nice. Well, thank you for taking the time to do this. I hope it helps. Do you have any questions before we wrap up? I want you to make sure you got the binder you wanted out of this since you took the time and risked your witness protection by putting your face on the internet.
Um, no, I think you covered everything. And oh, well, the only thing is the one tenant I could do right away because her lease already expired. The other three don't expire till August. So I don't know if I should do it now or wait till then.
So,
Uh,
what is the amount of required notification for a rent increase in your market?
90 days because they've all been there a long time.
So if they're up in August, you're already out. Whatever you do today can't happen till September.
Yeah.
So you have the conversation now. Now the chronology on that is you do everything we did with the binder strategy. You let the tenant suggest the new rent. You agree to the new rent. So the tenants mentally start thinking July 1st, maybe June 1st, I don't pay $1,000. I pay $1,400. And then you don't bring up the legally required amount of notification. What you bring up is, okay, so we've agreed 1,400 is the new rent going forward, or 1,300, or whatever they were that you came to. How about we make that take effect September 1st, giving you June, July, and August to like mentally prepare and adjust to this change, which, it's not a small amount. I want you to be able to handle this. The tenant will sit back. Usually, they might go, well, that's as much notice as we're supposed to get, or they might just sit back and go, wow, we agreed to a new rent, and then they give me 90 days to prep. This is I'm so glad Jason bought the property. Okay.
Yes.
So
So,
thanks for asking that because that was a step I forgot. The letters I delivered recently were for September 1st. Did the same thing
yeah,
because it's now 90 days. And it's 20-day notice to not renew a lease and kick somebody out, which is ridiculous. And I think it was 60-day notice for a rent increase. That's now 90 days.
it's 60 days if they've been there less than a year. Anything over a year, it's 90 days here.
Let me,
Um, well, I could say it here. I have to fix the roof because it's actually leaking in the two second floor apartments. So I did tell them I'm obviously going to fix them. That's probably not going to start till June. And then I'm going to fix their drywall and stuff like that, that the water's ruined. So I'll just
yeah,
let them
that period of time to fix things isn't to get things fixed. It's to change the perception of the tenant. I want the tenant to know I'm proactive.
know.
So the coded locks, the lights, check the screens, replace screens. So many landlords don't replace screens. And I'm like, yeah, it's because it's really weird. How do you go? Nobody just makes screens the right size for the window. So you find a screen company in your area. They're probably 20 bucks a window to have them come and change your screens, maybe 30. Right. So you do small things like that. And note, during the inspection, we noticed these things. This is going to be scheduled to be repaired in the future and point out the things like the roof and the leaks and that kind of stuff. And so their perception changed. It's not so important that all the things get done. It's that they know you're doing them.
Mm. Okay.
Cool. If you are interested in getting more answers to your questions every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, I will do videos that last as long as the questions do. And since you're in witness protection, Jason, I won't make you tell people how they can get a hold of you. Most of the people that are in the course know how to get a hold of you. So have a day full of amazing.
Thank you
What's
very much.
what's the weirdest thing about living in Chicago?
Hmm. I don't know. I'm actually happy here. I know it gets a bad rap, but where I'm at, I'm happy. I
Okay.
don't have any problems.
Yeah, the only thing that was weird for me, so I went to Chicago briefly. I've been there a couple times. The last time was with Millennial Mike when we went to Gary, Indiana. I didn't notice this in Chicago because we didn't spend enough time there, but in Indiana, the service, the customer service at the restaurants was atrocious. They hated being at work. They like walk up to your table and what do you want? Like super rude. I don't know what the difference was, but it was kind of shocking because I haven't been anywhere like that.
That was in Chicago or Gary?
That was more in because we were in Gary for, a
Oh,
period of time. We were only in Chicago in and out a couple days.
there's a couple places in Chicago that do that on purpose. They're
Oh,
ignorant
like
of
yeah, there's a Dick's in Seattle too, where that's the theme,
yeah,
but it's not the same. This was like you hate life. Why are you working at this restaurant and dealing with people? I don't get it.
no, our customer service is actually here is really good because they like their tips. So that's
Nice. Yeah.
why it's
No,
good.
uh, I have ties to the Moreno family in Chicago, and when I visit there, it's really cool to go into restaurants and the guy the guy looks at like pulls up a fork and he looks at it like this, like is there a spot? And all of a sudden, every tables are cleared and they bring out new stuff and it's like, oh, this guy has got that level of respect here. So, ciao,
Thank you.
and we are off of YouTube.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
My number, I didn't want to like throw it in the middle